Trent Dilfer, welcome to Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I hope you're doing well.
I'm doing great. I'm glad we finally connected.
Absolutely, and I'm excited to talk with you in so many different angles. To start out, certainly, let me talk about the Elite 11 because I think the transition to what you guys do with quarterback development is pretty unique to watch this process take place that's currently ongoing, and it will work its way down to 11 at some point there coming up in the summer.
Well, it's a fun process to be a part of. It's kind of a passion project for me. I was asked to become the head coach of it 6 years ago. It's been around for 15 years. And really when I was asked to take it over, I really wanted to make sure it became about training the whole person and not just the quarterback. It's really easy to develop driving range quarterback. It's not hard. There's science to it. I can get any kid that can't throw a ball 30 yards and throw it 45. There's science. It's not hard. There's a lot of quarterback trainers out there that do a really good job teaching kids how to throw a football. But that's not playing quarterback, and that's the problem that I saw in the space, is that there's a bunch of kids that can throw the eyes at it, but they didn't know how to play the game at all. So I figured we might as well take the Elite 11 and turn it into a holistic training ground where we train their mind, their soul, their body, obviously, with the best-in-class teaching, and also a lot of leadership stuff and a lot of stuff that will help become better men. And we feel like it's been really successful. We've definitely had some kids go on and have wild success. We've had some kids that haven't, have gotten in some trouble, and we're regretful about that. But for the 20 days that we have them in the course of the spring and the summer, if they happen to make the finals and the opening in Oregon, we try to give them everything that we have. The team is wonderful. We've put together. Yogi's obviously a huge part of it, but there's a lot of other people that invest a lot in these kids, and we're excited to do it every year. And two is one of the best we've ever had.
And so that's where it leads me to this conversation, because the audio clip that you were talking about, Tagovailoa, in the passing ability, I think in 10 days of spring practice here in Tuscaloosa, we've been able to confirm what you said. And what you said back in January grabs our attention still today. Talk about what you see in Tagovailoa.
Well, and let's put this in context, because we are an SEC country and people tend to overreact just a little bit to what people say. I think Tua has a chance of being an exceptional football player. Not good, not great, exceptional. A transformational type player. Doesn't mean he's going to be. There's a lot of things that happen when you go to college. I've seen a lot of incredible high school athletes go on to college, and whether the fit's wrong, the coaching doesn't stick, the player gets distracted, boy-girl issues, whatever it is, they don't reach their potential. I don't think that's going to be one of the reasons I'm so confident in Tua, is because he's so mature beyond his years. It's so much more than just football to him. It is really, it's a calling. I think he would tell you that he feels like there's a far greater purpose to why he's been given this ability and why he's able to do the things he does than just playing football. He is a very gifted passer. I would say he's probably the most gifted passer I've ever seen at this age. I worked out with Aaron Rodgers a lot when he was at Cal. Tua throws it better than Aaron Rodgers threw it as a sophomore at Cal Berkeley. That's not an exaggeration. I threw it both of them a lot. Now, Aaron's gotten 1,000 times better. The challenge is Tua has to continue to get better. Leads me to the last thing about Tua. He is the most coachable kid that I've ever coached. He was a train wreck when I first saw him in May of last year, fundamentally. I actually jumped him a little bit. I gave him some stuff I wanted to see changed. When I saw him about 3 weeks later, he had made the biggest transformation I'd ever seen a quarterback make in a short amount of time. So I have a ton of confidence in the kid.
When you look at the way that he spins the football and the way that the one thing that stood out to me is projecting and anticipating where a wide receiver is, not when he releases it, but where the wide receiver is going to be. I've never really seen a freshman do that the way that he does it. It's pretty unique to watch him 10 days here in practice going up against five-star defensive backs and to be able to show what he's been able to do. I mean, he's anticipating the arrival of the receiver more than I've ever seen a freshman do it.
Yeah, that was one of the things that we saw in the 7-on-7 at the opening, that his anticipation accuracy is ridiculous. And there's a lot of different accuracies. You know, I hate it when people just say, well, that quarterback's accurate. I always go, well, in which way? Is he accurate to stationary targets, throwing fastballs, changing trajectories, changing speeds, anticipatory accuracy, deep ball accuracy, intermediate accuracy? There's a lot of different accuracies. Tua has very good anticipation accuracy. Like, he can throw receivers open against very good DBs. And he wasn't really, that was not a strength of his when we first started working with him. It was simple as we explained to him that this is what it was going to take to become great. And then he immediately attacked it like he attacked everything else. He started working on it, and he wasn't afraid to throw an incompletion, to throw it a little early. He has very quick eyes. I'll segue to that because you can't have good anticipation accuracy without quick eyes. He has very, very quick eyes. He can get through his reads exceptionally fast. He can see movement patterns in the secondary better than most people. He doesn't get flustered, so he's not panicked ever with his eyes. I mean, I can go on and on and on. I can make this the geekiest quarterback session you've ever heard. But at the end of the day, what people in Tuscaloosa want to know is he going to be a great quarterback for them? And I would say if he's pushed, and Nick obviously pushes his quarterbacks, but the thing you have to do with Tua, and I'd encourage the whole staff to do it, is he's going to raise the bar of the players. Everybody will be better around him because he's going to push the players. He needs to be pushed really hard. And that's true with a lot of great athletes, great players, is they're so much better than everybody else that coaches tend to, and Nick doesn't make this mistake, but in general, they tend to take it easy on him because they're satisfied with where they're at. The sky's the limit for this kid, and he should be coached that way. He should be coached full throttle every second he's on campus. And if they do that, they're going to have an incredible, incredible football player.
Let me look at Jalen Hurts. You've also had him in the Elite 11 camp working through the process. What do you see in Jalen Hurts?
I love Jalen. I thought he was, again, another kid way mature beyond his years, an exceptional athlete, a great runner, a good enough thrower. In fact, I thought he was a little bit better thrower than he showed last year. But it's understandable playing as a true freshman. I get it. I mean, there's a lot going on upstairs. I thought he did a great job leading. He's a tough kid. The biggest thing, I went back and looked at my notes on Jalen, and from our evaluation of him, and toughness came out over and over and over, both mentally and physically, and that's probably why he was able to win the job last year with as hard as they do get coached there. An incredibly tough kid. It's going to be a dogfight. It's going to be, Jalen obviously coming off the national championship game and getting him there and losing a heartbreaker has a lot of pelts on the wall already. But the nature of this game is the more competition you have, it either breaks you or makes you better. And we're going to see what happens with Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, when I go out to Jalen, I mean, I watch him throw great balls, and then I watch him throw a 15-yard one-hopper to the wide receiver 3 different times. And it's like, why? Can you figure out a reason why he's so inconsistent? Because he throws a beautiful ball, but then it's like sometimes he forces them, and they're not good. They're not pretty.
Well, I know the reason why. I mean, it's, again, I'm not trying to sound cocky here. I've stolen everything I knew. If I knew what I knew now when I played, I would have been a heck of a lot better than a journeyman quarterback. But I've learned a lot through the science of mechanics, and when you have mechanical flaws, it shows up in inconsistencies. And he's always had a couple little flaws mechanically that he struggles with. They are fixable, but it's hard to fix in season. He tends to lock out his front leg. I know Lane worked really hard on that with him last year. Lane and I talked about that. But as he started bending his leg more, he started tilting more. So he tilts with his upper body a lot when he throws. The motion is more up and down instead of circular. All the great passers have more of a circular motion to their body rotation. So it's stuff he can work on. These kids are growing, man. I mean, we put so much pressure on them at a young age, and we think that they're a finished product when they're really not. They're a work in progress. And the problem at the University of Alabama, you guys are so darn good, is that you bring in another stud right behind you. So you don't really have time to develop and grow because you're constantly competing with the guy coming up to take your job. So that's a good problem to have, but it's hard for kids to really make big leaps and bounds from a mechanical standpoint as quarterbacks because they don't have time to work on the nuance of things. They're constantly trying to compete and get the next ball completed and so on and so forth.
But when you look at Jalen struggling from Auburn, Florida, Washington, Clemson, I've said this a couple times. I think the game will get harder for him because people know what he's good at and what he's bad at and where his weaknesses. And I think Clemson didn't do anything fancy. They just attacked his weakness. And will the game get harder for Jalen as people understand what he's good at and what he's bad at?
Well, if he stays the same as he was last year, yes. But you're making an assumption, again, and I just said that he's going to stay the same type of player that he was last year, and I would hope that he's improved. I mean, I just can speak personally. I stunk my freshman year in college. I was awful. My second year, I wasn't much better. My third year, I was an All-American. I ended up being the 6th pick of the draft. So, I mean, you can rapidly improve as a college quarterback. So it's just a matter of, has he made strides? And if he has, then the game won't be harder. It'll be easier. If he hasn't, if he's stayed the same, then yes, what you're saying is absolutely correct. There will be some serious challenges for him.
Let me go back to Tua just for a second. Do you worry about his height at all?
Nope. 0.
Okay. I mean, I'm asking for...
I think height's kind of overrated. The dumbest comment ever made in the history of football was stand tall in the pocket. You should stand strong in the pocket, not tall. Tall players, when they played, Peyton Manning was just over 6'4". When he loaded his legs in his prime, he played at about 6'2". You're never going to see over everybody. You need to stay strong base, wide base, strong platform. That drops you a little bit. You see through creases of the defense. Being tall helps at times, but it can hurt you at times too. So Drew Brees done okay. There's been a lot of guys around 6 feet tall that've done okay. I think Tua's going to be just fine. I think, the perception around him, people won't get as jazzed about him because he's not 6'3", 6'4", but I don't think it's going to affect how he plays the game.
Hey, Trent, final question. Looking at Nick Saban from someone who has played at a high level, you're a Super Bowl champ. What do you see that he's been able to do and to manage the personalities to keep this dynasty rolling?
Well, I mean, he's going to go down as one of the greatest coaches of our generation. There's so many things. He's an incredible leader. He's an incredible evaluator of talent, not just athletic talent, but the type of competitor the kids are. We have all these Alabama kids come to the opening, and I say it every year that they're the hardest working kids. They're the most intense kids. They're the most competitive kids. They're not always the best athletes. That's a myth. A myth is that Alabama gets all the best athletes. No, they get the best football players. They get the best combination of athletes, physical, mental toughness, competitive spirit, the ability to learn. They ask them to learn a lot of football at Alabama. These guys have the capacity to learn, so they're smart kids. They have high football IQs. So he's an incredible evaluator. Coaches hard, and I think that's the key to coaching, is you have to coach your coaches. They have the most contacts with the kids. They're the ones that message is being heard constantly. The head coach is only in front of the team so often. You better coach your coaches, and your core philosophies, your core values better be spewing out of your assistant coaches. And Nick does a great job with that. And he gets good coaches. Obviously, a lot of people want to coach there and do this work with him and coach those players. So, I mean, I can go on and on and on. He is just simply a fantastic football coach and has built, as you said, a dynasty. And I frankly love it. I mean, I live in California, so I have no horse in the race in the SEC. I love to see what Alabama's done. I love to coach the kids in the summer that are going there because they're great kids, and I love seeing what he's done.